For 3 long years, they pleaded their case. A young, ambitious species from the galactic rim, asking for a seat at the table of the gods. They offered their art, their science, their spirit. The Galactic Council, rulers for 10,000 years, saw only one thing: a threat. A species that grew too fast, fought too hard, and dreamed too big. So they passed their judgment. Not just rejection, but isolation. A cage built around a star. But what happens when you lock a predator in a cage, only to find you've locked yourself in with it? What happens when the children you exiled grow up? And when a true galactic threat arrives, and the old gods fall? Who will answer the call? The Galactic Council voted against Earth and triggered their own ruin. Before the judgment is passed, subscribe to the channel for the full, uncensored history, and engage the like button to signal your allegiance. Alright, let's begin the story. Ambassador Leah Rojas stood in the center of the Great Chamber. The air itself hummed with power, recycled for eons, tasting of ozone and utter finality. Above her, on tiered platforms of light and energy, sat the delegates of the Galactic Council. Beings of crystal, of gas, of living metal, and of flesh so ancient it had forgotten the touch of a natural sun. For 3 years, she had stood in this spot. For 3 years, she had presented humanity's case. She had shown them our art, the raw, chaotic emotion of a Terran symphony that made the gaseous delegates of Cygnus writhe with feelings they had no name for. She had shown them our science, the elegant, brutal simplicity of a human-designed fusion reactor, built in a decade, that was 20% more efficient than their own millennia-old designs. She had shown them our spirit, footage of human volunteers on our colony, Proxima B, working for weeks without rest to save a single alien survey crew whose ship had crashed. Today, the council would vote. High Chancellor Valerius, his form encased in shimmering golden armor, rose to his full 3-meter height. His species, the Ascended, had guided the council for 5,000 years. His voice was not a sound, but a psychic projection of pure, unwavering authority that resonated directly in Leah's mind. The human delegation has presented its case. We have reviewed your achievements. We have analyzed your expansion. We have judged your history. Counselor Elian, a being of living, sentient crystal, spoke next, its voice a cascade of harmonic chimes. I object to this membership. The humans are too volatile. In the 60 years since achieving faster-than-light travel, they have established 12 colonies. Most species take 1,000 years to expand so quickly. A low rumble came from the delegate of the Gore hegemony. Their history is a litany of self-destruction. They call it war. How can we trust a species with galactic peace when they have never known it themselves? Leah stepped forward. Honored Council. Yes, our history is violent, but we have learned from it. The United Earth government was forged in the fires of our last, greatest war. We have been at peace with ourselves for over a century. A century, Valerius projected, the thought dripping with the condescension of a being who remembered stars being born. We have treaties older than your entire civilization. You call a century peace? A ripple of amusement, of psychic laughter, echoed in her skull. What we lack in age, we make up for in determination, Leah said, her voice the only true sound in the chamber, small but defiant. Determination can be dangerous, human, Valerius countered. You move too fast. You take too many risks. You burn too brightly. Such fires often consume themselves and everything around them. He raised a hand. The time for debate has ended. We will now vote. Leah held her breath. Around the chamber, lights began to appear. Emerald for yes. Crimson for no. She saw a few flickers of green from the younger species. The delegates whose worlds had benefited from human trade. The ones who saw human ambition not as a threat, but as a reflection of their own past. But the crimson lights, they were a flood. The Ascended. The crystalline unity. The Gore hegemony. The ancient powers, the pillars of the galaxy, one by one, they voted no. The vote is complete, Valerius announced. 31 against membership. 16 in favor. The motion fails. Humanity will not be granted membership in the Galactic Council. Leah's heart sank. 3 years of hope turned to dust. Furthermore, Valerius continued, and a cold dread washed over her. This council believes humanity requires a period of maturation to contemplate your nature. Therefore, the The Terran Containment Protocol will be implemented immediately. Leah's head snapped up. Containment Protocol? What does that mean? Counselor Elian's crystal form pulsed a cold, hard red. It means your ships are no longer welcome in Council space. All trade is cancelled. All diplomatic contact is suspended. A sensor net, impenetrable and absolute, will be established around your home system. You are quarantined. They weren't just rejecting her. They were imprisoning her entire species. A cage of a dozen light years, built around a star. For how long? Leah asked, her voice a whisper. Until you prove you have changed, Valerius projected. Perhaps in a few centuries. Perhaps in a millennium. When you are ready to join civilized society, we will know. Leah looked around the chamber. At the faces of indifference. At the beings who had just sentenced 4 billion people to a slow, stagnant death, and were already moving on to the next item on their agenda. The Galactic Council has made its choice, Leah said, her voice suddenly devoid of all emotion. It was cold. It was quiet. It was terrifying. Humanity will remember this day. A few delegates registered amusement at the primitive's empty threat. Leah didn't react. She simply reached into her uniform pocket, her fingers finding a small, flat device. With an imperceptible movement, she pressed it. The signal was instantaneous. A single, encrypted quantum bit, fired across 30,000 light-years to a hidden command bunker deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean. Far away, Admiral Kenji Tanaka received the signal. He had been preparing for this contingency for a decade. He looked at his assembled officers, their faces grim. Prometheus is a go, he said, his voice hard as iron. Cut all official contact. Begin phase 1 of the silent expansion. And spin up the forges. Back in the Great Chamber, Leah bowed formally. Thank you for your time, honored council. She turned and walked away, her footsteps the only sound in the vast, silent room. The council had already forgotten her. They had no idea that their vote to contain humanity would be remembered as the greatest mistake in galactic history. They thought they were protecting themselves. Instead, they had just triggered their own ruin. For 50 years, the galaxy knew a strange, unprecedented peace on its outer rim. The Terran Containment Protocol was a resounding success. Long-range scans of the Sol system showed exactly what the Council had predicted. The humans were struggling. Their 12 colonies, now cut off, showed signs of economic collapse. Their space traffic had dwindled to almost nothing. Their expansion had stopped dead. They were a caged animal, slowly starving. The Council was satisfied. They had done the right thing. They never looked in the places they deemed worthless. They never scanned the dark systems between the stars. They never paid attention to the brown dwarf stars or the nebulae thick with radiation that their sensors couldn't penetrate. And so, they never saw it. The silent expansion, on a world they called New Hope, orbiting a star the Council had labeled Uninhabitable Anomaly 734. Humanity was not starving. They were thriving. In a hidden research facility buried beneath the ice of that world, Dr. Eris Thorne stood before a holographic display. For 50 years, his teams had worked in absolute secrecy. They gave us their outdated schematics during the diplomatic period, he told his young, brilliant scientists. They showed us their mastery of physics. They thought they were impressing primitives. He brought up a design. The Council's standard FTL drive. A massive, complex machine, beautiful and inefficient. They have been using the same basic technology for 10,000 years, Eris said, a grim smile on his face. They layered it with safety protocols, backup systems, redundant failsafes. They made it so safe, they forgot how to make it good. He swiped his hand, and a new design appeared. It was smaller, simpler, brutally efficient. This is the quantum slipstream drive. It's twice as fast as their drives, runs on common elements we can mine from any asteroid, and is completely undetectable by Council sensors. They buoy LT as a cage. He looked at the faces of his team. And we've just built the key. While Dr. Thorne's scientists reinvented physics, Admiral Tanaka's silent fleet was putting it to use. 50 years. It was a lifetime for a human. It was enough time to build an empire in the dark. Using the new Ghost Drive stealth technology and the Slipstream FTL, humanity had spread. Not to the lush, garden worlds the Council coveted, but to the harsh, resource-rich systems the elder races had ignored. They had established not 12, but 112 hidden colonies. A secret, thriving interstellar civilization operating in the galactic shadows. They were no longer 4 billion souls on one world. They were 50 billion, scattered across a network of fortress worlds and hidden shipyards, all linked by the new, undetectable technology. And they were waiting. The first warning of the scourge came from a research station at the edge of the galaxy. The last transmission was a single, terrified scream, followed by a sound that defied physics. Then silence. They were a hive-mind species of crystalline entities, a swarm of living ships that traveled in the darkness between galaxies. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They consumed. They fell upon the outer council worlds like a storm of broken glass. They stripped planets of their atmospheres, their oceans, their very crusts, absorbing the matter and energy to grow, to multiply. The council's fleets, designed for peacekeeping and intimidating primitives, were useless. Their energy weapons dissipated harmlessly against the scourge's crystalline forms. Their kinetic weapons shattered on impact. Worse, the scourge learned. After each battle, they adapted. They consumed the alloys of the council's destroyed ships and incorporated them into their own bodies, becoming stronger, more resilient. The Battle of Cygnus Prime lasted 17 minutes. The council's mighty bulwark of Order Fleet, 300 capital ships, was not just defeated. It was eaten. Panic erupted. The galaxy, which had known peace for millennia under the council's rigid rule, was collapsing into terror. Refugee fleets clogged the space lanes, a desperate, disorganized exodus fleeing the unstoppable tide. In the Great Chamber, High Chancellor Valerius, his golden armor seeming less brilliant now, made the decision he had sworn he would never make. He activated the emergency diplomatic channel to the Sol system, a channel that had been silent for 50 years. Leah Rojas, now the 50-year-old director of interstellar affairs for the human race, took the call in her office on Luna. Her face was lined with the quiet stress of a long, cold war, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. Valerius's psychic projection was weak, strained. Director Rojas, the galaxy faces an existential threat. We require assistance from all spacefaring species. He explained about the scourge, the unstoppable advance, the consumed worlds, the defeated fleets. It was a plea from a dying god. Leah listened in polite silence. Human observation posts, hidden near the galactic rim, had been tracking the scourge for months. They knew everything. You are asking for Earth's help, Chancellor? Leah said when he was finished, her voice perfectly neutral. That is interesting, considering the Council voted to exclude us from all galactic affairs. The past is the past / Valerius projected, the thought laced with desperation. This threat endangers all life / Surely your species understands the need for cooperation / Let me be sure I understand, Leah said, pulling up a document on her screen. I am looking at the charter of the Terran Containment Protocol. Section 4, subsection B. All diplomatic, commercial, and military contact with the human species is hereby suspended indefinitely. You are in violation of your own law, Chancellor. This is not the time for petty grievances / Millions are dying / 50 years ago, Leah said, her voice dropping to an icy whisper. You sentenced 4 billion people to a slow death in a cage. You called our determination a danger. You called our ambition a fire that needed to be extinguished. We were a problem to be managed. She leaned forward. The problem has been managed, Chancellor. The line went dead. The human response was not silence. It was something far more terrifying. As the Council's civilization crumbled, as refugee ships fled in terror, a NEW fleet appeared on the edge of the chaos. Human ships, sleek, black, and utterly silent. They were running dark, invisible to all but the desperate who stumbled upon them. They offered help. They offered sanctuary. But their help came at a price. Admiral Tanaka, now a grim, gray-haired veteran of the long, secret buildup, commanded the operation from his flagship, the Vengeance. The mission was codenamed Scavenger Protocol. When a refugee convoy from the Crystalline Unity was found adrift, its engines failing, a human fleet decloaked around them. This is Admiral Tanaka of the Terran Defense Fleet, he broadcast. We are here to help. Prepare for our engineering teams to come aboard. The crystalline beings wept with relief. The human teams were polite, efficient. They repaired the ships. They provided food and medical supplies. And they copied everything. They downloaded the entire contents of the ship's computer cores. Star charts, technical schematics, historical records. They took biological samples. They scanned weapon systems. And they identified the most valuable refugees. The scientists, the engineers, the military strategists. Dr. Elian Prime, the Unity's foremost expert on crystalline computing, was one of those selected. He was taken aboard the human flagship for what they called collaborative research. Your technology is remarkable, he chimed to Dr. Eris Thorne, looking at a human quantum computer. How did you achieve this in isolation? Eris smiled. We had excellent teachers. The Council provided us with the finest alien technology during our diplomatic period. We just improved on the designs. By the time the refugee convoy was sent on its way, its computers were wiped clean of all sensitive data, and 30 of its best minds had volunteered to stay with the humans, lured by the promise of working with technology decades ahead of their own. This scene was repeated 100 times. Humanity was not saving the galactic community. They were strip mining it, harvesting the accumulated knowledge of 10,000 years from the wreckage of a dying empire. From his command center, Tanaka watched the data flow in. Status report. We have acquired complete technical readouts for ascended psychic amplifiers, Gore hegemony kinetic barriers, and Slith cloaking technology, his intelligence officer reported. Dr. Thorne's teams are already integrating them into our new ship designs. And the Scourge. The intelligence from the refugees has been invaluable, Dr. Thorne himself replied via comms. We have analyzed their hive mind structure. We have identified a resonant frequency that should, theoretically, cause a cascading failure in their crystalline structure. We are preparing a weapon. Tanaka nodded. The Council had feared human ambition. They should have feared human pragmatism. Finally, when humanity had learned everything they needed, when they had harvested the best and brightest of the dying civilizations, they acted. It was not a battle. It was an execution. A single, galaxy-wide pulse was emitted from a network of hidden human stations. A weaponized resonant frequency, perfectly tuned. Across 1,000 light-years of space, the crystalline scourge shattered. The hive mind screamed, a psychic death knell that echoed in the minds of every telepathic species. The crystalline ships turned on each other, then simply disintegrated into inert dust. The threat was over. And then, over every surviving Council world, the silent fleet of the human race decloaked. Thousands of black, silent warships, their weapon ports glowing with cold, patient energy. Liar Rojas's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. The Galactic Council, having proven incapable of protecting its member worlds, is hereby dissolved, she announced, her voice calm and absolute. A new provisional government is being established to ensure stability. The Terran hegemony. The roles had been reversed. For your own good, she continued, using the Council's own words. You will be placed under human supervision until you prove you can be trusted. The cage had been opened, but the species that walked out was not the one the Council had locked inside. It was stronger, colder, and it had learned its lesson well. In a galaxy of gods, the only way to survive was to become a Titan. The Galactic Council, rulers for 10,000 years, saw only one thing, a threat. A species that grew too fast, fought too hard, and dreamed too big. So they passed their judgment. Not just rejection, but isolation. A cage built around a star. But what happens when you lock a predator in a cage, only to find you've locked yourself in with it? What happens when the children you exiled grow up? Liar Rojas's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. The Galactic Council, having proven incapable of protecting its member worlds, is hereby dissolved, she announced, her voice calm and absolute. A new provisional government is being established to ensure stability. The Terran hegemony. The roles had been reversed. For your own good, she continued, using the Council's own words. You will be placed under human supervision until you prove you can be trusted. The cage had been opened, but the species that walked out was not the one the Council had locked inside. It was stronger, colder, and it had learned its lesson well. In a galaxy of gods, the only way to survive was to become a Titan. The Galactic Council, rulers for 10,000 years, saw only one thing, a threat. A species that grew too fast, fought too hard, and dreamed too big.